Hi and hello and welcome to episode 23 of Going Over. Of course, I'm Fred Slow. Alongside me, Sally Taylor, and a fun on-location broadcast of Going Over is we're at Sadies on 4th Street, Sally.
This is beautiful.
You been
I'm
here?
surprised they let me in.
You been here before?
Yeah, but not since the incident.
Oh,
They don't know. I don't know.
interesting. A
You
lot
don't
going
know.
on in the world of pro wrestling. We're excited to bring you all of it, including the retirement of an icon. We'll talk about that at length. 3 pro wrestling shows in the state of New Mexico last week. We'll talk about that as well. Changes and updates coming to the world of Duke City Championship Wrestling. Also, we, as of the time of this recording, are 30 days away from WrestleMania, and that's the showcase of the Immortals, Saleh. Is it the best time of the year for pro wrestling in the state of New Mexico and pro wrestling overall right now?
I'd say it is. Yes,
Yeah.
it is right now. The first quarter of any year is actually a beautiful time because everyone's trying to get a good look and try to get a good impression of what the year is going to be
Yeah.
like. And this is a great time, not just to be a fan, but also like a New Mexican, Cape New Mexico.
Yeah,
man.
well, I like
Yeah,
that.
man.
Really good storytelling in the world of WWE. But the big story for us last week was 3 pro wrestling shows in the state of New Mexico last week. There are only a handful of individuals that went to all of them. I was one of them as we were in Clovis, New Mexico 2 Saturdays ago. Duke City Championship Wrestling at the historic El Rey Theater last Thursday, which we'll talk about at length. And then, of course, the premiere of Phase 1 Pro. Congratulations today as a rising tide raises all ships, Saleh. It was a banger of a week for pro wrestling in the state of New Mexico. Tommy Two Scoops wrestled 3 times. Turbo Tony wrestled 3 times. I ran 2 events, or was part of running 2, because really you run one of them. And then finally I was able to be a fan. I was a fan for the first time in a long time.
So let me
Saleh.
interrupt. How was that for you? Did
Oh,
you
my
have to
God.
sit back and just hang out with our friends.
Well, it's so funny you said that, because
Phase 1.
the last independent show I went to was what Brian Idol was doing down in Florida.
Yeah.
So I went down to the Royal Rumble, and as I'm down at the Royal Rumble, I'm like, well, I'm going to check out an indie show, and Brian Idol, who I had not met, but I was fully aware of his existence, does obviously all the affiliation stuff with NWA. So I was like, well, I want to go see his show. I'm going to go see what he's got going on. So I was even working then. You know what I mean? It was like a scout thing. I needed to find some talent. And by the way, we found some talent in Brian Idol and Natalia Markova, who came out and just put on 2 banger matches at the El Rey this past Thursday. It was incredible. But going to Phase 1 Pro as a fan was wild. So I took my lady, so I'm there, and there was something fun about it. And this is a throwback what they did, right? And we had Kevin Vanderkeef on the program last week. This is a throwback to KC Halls, to Armories, to VFWs. They did it at the Elks Lodge. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is small room, tight chairs. I'm going to tell you from my count, 250 people. I mean, just a really good showing for a debut show.
Beautiful.
A really good showing.
Beautiful.
And a lot of talent in the ring. But it was you got to get up and leave the room to go get a beer at the old school wood panel part of the building next door. The parking lot was too small, so you had to park across the street. Everyone's got a guest register with the Elks as you come in, so the line moves too slow. Just a couple folding tables of merch, when you walk in, and you're like, this is what I grew up on. This is independent wrestling like I've seen it. And you know what we do with Duke City Championship Wrestling, that's TV product. You know what I mean? Like, we're shooting a TV show. We got tight times. We got a ton of fun production stuff. And this was not that. This was like grassroots, like butt whooping pro wrestling.
So having Phase 1 being this marking out, I believe, was
Yeah.
the name of the show, being the debut show under the guise of Phase 1. And you said like it felt like a roots movement where you're coming in. Did they do a good job on introducing or reintroducing themselves to the New Mexico crowd?
Yeah, and it was a different crowd. There were a handful of fans in attendance that were all tremendous, right? Like, they were all great. And I recognized some DCCW fans. And they recognized, some of our guys. Adam Merrick was out there, our ring announcer. And, if you know the kind of the inside and outsides of pro wrestling here, Adam Merrick was in an ownership role for a long time with DWO. And, he's got a passion for it. And he's obviously got a strong relationship with Kevin Vanderkeef. Our photographer, Rusty Rutherford, was there. And it was so funny because Rusty, I think, did he mention he shot over 1,200, like edited, like fully produced?
He went through every single thing. That man's been busy.
Isn't that wild?
That more respect to the man.
Just incredible. And it's a what I don't know the best way to say this. The ring that they have to use at the Elks is lower because the ceiling's lower. The
lower
building
clearance, right? Yeah.
Yeah, the building is smaller. Like all of those things, right? So as I walk in with my lady and we're watching, Rusty is ringside, kneel down. You know, he's like in the catcher's position, and he's just sweating, just the entire like middle of his back all the way down. And I call him after the event. I'm like, what was up? I'm like, it wasn't that hot in there. He goes, do you know how many squats I was doing to stay out of the way?
Couldn't engage your core enough, bro. Like, come on, man.
Well, and because at Duke City Championship Wrestling, you know, he has that little corner he hangs out in and gets a ton. Hey, but here's what he did. He stole my gimmick. So we gave him a gimmick in Duke City Championship Wrestling. We had originally wrote that gimmick for you. So originally,
the curtain for you guys.
So whenever Saleh came into the organization, which we're going to talk about Saleh at length today because I got so much appreciation for him. Whenever you originally came into the organization, Saleh, it was you weren't going to do the color commentary role. You were going to do a social media, like fan experience role. And we had this whole idea where you were going to go old timey, like roaring 20s, like news reporter.
Newsy, man. Yeah.
And it you know, Chris Burnett went another direction with the company, and we ended up, you know, putting our best players in their best position, and that's you on the broadcast with me. But it was kind of incredible to see, like, oh, this gimmick that we created, like Rusty's brought over here, and I'm like, let's go, guys, let's laugh it in.
I think to be fair with Rusty, it could be said that like it's a lifestyle, not necessarily a gimmick for him. So I'm proud of Rusty. I'm really happy for Rusty. A really cool thing, a really cool fun fact about Rusty, he didn't really start doing photography until like several years ago.
Yeah.
He's new to the game and he's killing it.
Well,
he has a great eye.
Former pro wrestler, obviously stand-up comedian. And, you know, that versatility, again, we're going to talk about it at length in this episode of how important it is in the world of pro wrestling to be more than just a fill in the blank.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And, yeah, Rusty, because he was able to be in the ring for some time, he's a lifelong fan of the product. He knows what to look for. You know, he knows what looks good on camera. Also, the guy understands shutter speed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The guy understands editing. He is a pro. So for him to be a part of what we're doing, so very special. And for he to be a part of all pro wrestling in New Mexico, so very special. Duke City Championship Wrestling at the historic El Rey Theater. It was a leap year lockup show, Saleh. It was wild good. We brought in two fun representatives from the NWA, Brian Idol, Natalia Markova. They were absolute bangers. Also, our new friend Adrian came down from Denver. She was incredible too. The conversation was best three-way in the history of Duke City Championship Wrestling. Fortunately for us, it was also a women's match, Saleh, and it stole the show last Thursday night.
So every match was on fire. Every single match was just on fire. But our very first ladies three-way, that was a clinic on intensity, on storytelling, and just a good old butt whooping.
Oh, and athleticism.
Fight. It was something that I can only respect.
Well,
and I had the honor of calling that match with you.
Yeah.
And it was hard keeping my role as a commentary and having to stay in a role as color commentary and not marking out because there was some beautiful moments in there.
A lot of really good high spots, you know, and that's what we use going over for is to kind of talk about the complexity of the world of pro wrestling, right? So they arrive early. All the competitors arrive early. We do this 4 p.m. when our doors open 6. So we do a 4 p.m. call before we go over production. It's like it's for new people. It's really, you know, hard cameras here. This is how we work. Lights can do this. Go talk to them. Sound can do this. Go talk to them. Get Fred and Saleh if there's a story that you want featured during the match. Like, it's the whole thing. Hey, get your promo shots. Hey, set up your merch. Like there is so much more to pro wrestling than just pro wrestling.
Yes.
So anyway, so the gals all get there early, and what was originally slated to be 2 women's matches, Eliza Hayes, regular Duke City Championship Wrestling fan favorite, not able to make it due to the transport. So she lives in Silver City, which I don't know if she wants me to disclose that, but she has to come up to Albuquerque to perform with us.
Yeah.
And it wasn't in the cards, you know, on Thursday. And that was a tough one for her. So we ended up last minute audible card subject to change. You know,
everything.
We ended up, last minute creating a 3-way. So we ended up putting Markova, Adrian, and Lilith all in one where they were able to go, and they put their 3 heads together, and you see them in the ring, and they're doing stuff with their fingers on the ring canvas, like mapping it out. They're jumping around. You were watching this process.
This was beautiful, and so mind you, when you see yourself on the card when you're getting ready to go to a show, you have an idea what you want to do because you have an idea who you're working with, what they can do. You can research your opponent, and then you have some time. They had 2 hours, under 2 hours, to say, all right, cards change. It's gonna be a triple threat match.
Yeah,
and we need you all to show up.
Well, and you're making an interesting point because we record going over on the live stream.
Yeah.
So if you're listening to us on Saturday morning, welcome. Thank you for being part of the Sports Animal. If you're with us live here on the podcast, Duke City Warriors ask, do the wrestlers ask for interview time? It's interesting. They all do. Literally every single one.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the answer.
As much as they love wrestling, they love the microphone, right?
Yes.
But because we made the change to the show, we went from a 9-match card down to an 8. We did have some flexibility.
Yeah.
We were able to do some things with the crowd and behind the scenes. And those backstage interviews, they're predetermined. Who talks in the ring, all that stuff is thrown together by us. Does it go off script? Sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes a thing occurs or an explanation needs to be given, and how creative and capable our performers are that they know how to do that on the spot. But yeah, they do. And then as far as the time aspect, they get the amount of time it takes to tell the part of the story they need to tell.
Yeah.
Because we're making a TV show. We're not making a spot fest. We're not making a come and see the most fill in the blank, athletic, charismatic, whatever. You're not coming just to see them perform one time and then bounce out of town. Jacob Fatu will be back. Brian Idol will be back. Natalia Markova will be back. Lilith Grimm
will be back.
Angelica Risk. I promise you this. March 28th, the March to Madness. Get ready for an Angelica Risk sighting. Woo! Like that. I mean, and that's the thing about this is we're telling super long stories.
So, we are just jump on top of what you're talking about. We are a story driven. We're a narrative driven promotion, because we are a TV product, because we have the advantage of utilizing social media the way we do. So that's one of the things we have to keep in mind when others are asking for TV time or asking for mic time is it driving a story? Is it driving something? Everyone has an angle and everyone has a story that we're working on. But at this moment, we have 5. We have 5 storylines happening.
Yeah.
And at least 5, actually. If anyone is watching live right now on a chat, can anyone correct me?
Well, it's Jerry Vendetta and Howie, or Homie, which also
the most professional wrestling thing ever.
Inside Pro Wrestling. This is the first angle I've ever written. You know what I mean? I've been around pro wrestling forever, but Dancing Skeleton, the dancing remains of Homie is the first thing I've ever written, and it doesn't look like the other stuff on the card. No, it's stupid.
That's a Fred production.
Yeah,
that's a Fred Slow production.
I wrote that. That's my thing. So we Jerry Vendetta and Homie, which were 11. Obviously, Turbo Tony and Chuy Martinez. Chuy Martinez has become so very hated with the audience, and man. I love it. A friend of the show, Mitch, who's in the live chat, he was saying, Chuy Martinez knocks my phone out of my hand. Good. Like that's why Chuy Martinez is there.
That's what you get.
The Turbo Tony Chuy Martinez is fire. Obviously, we just wrapped up. It was a go-home between Tyler Copeland and Tommy Two Scoops. That thing's incredibly good. Hobo Hank versus an MK selected opponent every single week. Incredibly good. Thunder coming up with support every single angle he makes. There's 5 there. Also, what's happening with Saleh Taylor? There's like a world of stuff going on in the world of pro wrestling and Duke City Championship, and it's been low-key amazing. Like low-key.
It's such a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
It's and not just that, we also have Eliza Hayes who wants to legitimize the women's division in the DCCW. You got the Clown Cats, the tag team division that's trying to legitimize that. You have so many things happening. You got Fonzie LaFleur who just wants to shove anyone down to his level of Delulu, man. That I love our show.
Yeah, it's very good.
So that's one of the things we just have to be mindful of when people are asking for mic time or anything like that. We just have to be, all right, What's is it supporting a story? We can't just have anyone just talking up there.
Yeah.
Because every single person who's in there spent their hard-earned money, and they're sharing their time with us. Well, we want to add value to that as much as possible.
Pro wrestling is for performers and fans that love soap opera, but they can't spell soap, right? So the idea is we go up there and and you can't, not everything can be on the same arc.
Yeah.
Not everything's going to start or finish at the same time. And we staggered the start of our storylines whenever we started this organization so many months ago, to where, if it was the tournament for the belt, or if it was, the betrayal of Thunder, or, where we currently sit now with Jacob Fatu coming to town. Like we put these things in a matter to where you're not going to get every payoff every night. You're going to get a payoff every night. And it's wild fun, and it's wild good, and it's a world of creativity. And we'll step away for a second, Sully, so we can come right back. And whenever we do get back, we're going to talk a little bit about the retirement of Sting. We're going to talk a little bit about big names in pro wrestling and what they mean to fans in person. And then lastly, we're going to transition that into a conversation about how important it is to be versatile in the world of pro wrestling. For the listeners' sake, on the Sports Animal, I, Fred Slow, am an owner of Duke City Championship Wrestling. If you do at any time purchase tickets, merchandise, anything related to DCCW, that does go into my pockets, Saleh. That goes into Daddy's pockets.
Daddy's pockets.
DCCWtickets.com to come and see us at the El Rey Live Monthly Pro Wrestling. Whenever we get back, more from Sadies. It's going over on 95.9 FM and AM 610, the Sports Animal. Welcome back to the program. Welcome back to Going Over. I'm Fred Slow, Saleh Taylor alongside me. We're live at Sadies for the recording, so live to tape. We're live to tape.
That's what he said.
There we go.
Yeah.
It has been a banger of a week in the world of pro wrestling. Obviously, we just recapped part of Duke City Championship Wrestling last Thursday night, the historic El Rey. We'll put a pin in that. Brian Idol versus Hobo Hank is a story of stories, my man. Brian Idol came in with the NWA. He had kindness words for our promotion. Check out our YouTube channel immediately following this broadcast, as we will tonight drop a really fun, short documentary on Brian and Natalia coming to visit NWA, DCCW, working together, common goals, common direction, and how fortunate the city of Albuquerque and the world of pro wrestling will be for a partnership between these two organizations.
Are we safe to say officially that we got the stamp of approval from NWA?
I tell you what, it might be safe to say we went over. So this Duke City Championship Wrestling was going over with NWA, and it was a lot of fun. Brian Idol and Hobo Hank, dare I say, in Hobo Hank's 27th year, if you count January, now February, the Fatu match, the Brian Idol match. Have we seen the best two matches that Hobo Hank has ever had in consecutive weeks in his last 2 weeks, the oldest weeks of his career?
In his 5 decades he's been involved with wrestling, professional wrestling, this man is catching second wind, third, fourth, fifth wind. He's on another ride. He's on another level. And I am – now this is me, Saleh.
Yep.
I'm speaking on the level now.
Yep.
It is an honor to watch him work and see him continue the passion.
Yeah.
And reignite a passion. It's a beautiful thing. And, behind the curtain, Hobo Hank is actually one of the owners. That's common knowledge by now. And the fact that he's still able to get in there and mix it up and roll around and still work, it's a beautiful thing.
Something really special, yeah. And, as you pointed out, he is at that point in his career where he can go for a long time. It's pro wrestling. We're going to talk about Sting. Sting went for the course of 5 different decades. Are you kidding me?
At least.
But he's going to go for a long time. But what is he doing? He's helping others get there. And if he's not putting over individual wrestlers, he's putting over Duke City Championship Wrestling right now. And that's a very big deal, in my opinion.
Yes.
To the world of pro wrestling here, because it's a renaissance. We talked about other promotions starting in New Mexico. We talked about other promotions that aren't NWA coming to town to perform with other organizations. It is right now what it was not 1 year ago today. And it's been such an incredible journey. And the parts that play a piece in that, the El Rey Theater is one. The El Rey Theater is a beautiful venue. And
we are grateful for the beautiful and historic El Rey Theater.
Well, and it was such a interesting juxtaposition for me versus the Elks Lodge the other day.
Yeah.
The Elks Lodge was really good for an independent wrestling show.
Yes.
It's not the TV show that we put up.
No.
So you can get whatever flavor of ice cream you like here in town as it relates to pro wrestling. Brian Idol, Hobo Hank, Brian Idol, and I'm not going to spoil it for you, youtube.com/@DCCDub. But we put out a banger of a little documentary. You're going to see that. He compares Hobo Hank to one of the biggest names in pro wrestling as far as the reaction of the crowd. So the pop that Hobo Hank gets, and if you haven't seen it, also pop is an industry term. That's the eruption of the crowd, right? So the welcome and the eruption of the crowd that Hobo Hank gets whenever he simply walks through the curtain.
It's something to be experienced. Yeah. Like when you're watching our stuff on YouTube, our episodes, we do air some of our stuff. We are on Xfinity, I believe.
Yeah,
and we're also on. We air our episodes on YouTube.
Correct.
And it doesn't capture nearly as much of the energy of the vibe. When that man crosses the curtain onto the stage, that place erupts.
Correct.
And like you're reminded that, oh, this is his house. This is
well, and I was a little humbled to it whenever we went to Clovis, at the Dirty Curry for the Border War Showdown, because when Hobo Hank came out, and there's 500 fans in Clovis.
Yeah.
Whenever he comes out, it's not that eruption.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's they don't know. And Brian Idol said, again, I'm not going to spoil anything. He said it's as unique of a response that he's ever seen from an indie crowd that he's ever seen. And Hobo Hank, I want to maybe formally apologize on the radio show. Maybe I should have formally apologized at Duke City Championship Wrestling that I and you and I, Saleh, don't do a good enough job of expressing the emotion in the building when that man is defending the pride of Albuquerque against what has been an onslaught of come latelys.
That's a good note.
Yeah.
And that's a humbling note. I love that. I'll take that. And I gotta agree with you on that because you are sloughing. You are slacking.
The thing I do, I was talking to my co-host Van Nully of Two Men On, which you can catch obviously throughout the week here on 95.9 FM and AM 610, the Sports Animal. Thank you. Van Nully has sat in with us on the women's three-way match, and Van Nully sits in once a TV recording. He's my best guy. He's just a world of fun. You were there with us as well. So he sits in, and afterwards I'm drinking a beer and I'm talking shop and I'm saying, brother, I feel like I'm kind of pigeonholed into the broadcasting with Duke City Championship Wrestling. I feel like I'm the voice. I feel like I'm telling the stories. Yeah. And he's like, yeah, man. He's like, you're not the only guy who could do it, but because you're the guy who did it first, you're solidified in that spot.
Yeah.
And because I got a little bit of jealous say, my friend. I got a little bit of jealous say of you.
Oh.
I got a little bit of jealous say of you regularly transforming from the commentator booth into a in-ring and a support role and kind of the world that exists around that. And I don't know if I can personally get out of mine, but how exciting it is for the audience to see where you will grow too. And not just you, and not to spoil anything, there are wrestlers right now doing multiple gimmicks, right?
Yeah.
There are wrestlers right now that are working behind the scenes to build rings. They're setting up merchandise. They're setting up chairs.
There's also wrestlers who are agents and like helping, making sure that the matches are hidden, telling a story. Like
it's incredible to see like the fellowship of it all. And obviously we'll go into this in depth, but we watched over the weekend in the world of AEW, Sting retire from pro wrestling.
The icon.
And he has done in 5 different decades so incredibly much. He has done in 5 different decades. He's wrestled without the face paint. He's wrestled the heavy face. He's never really gone heavy heel. You've never really seen Sting stand in opposition from the good guy in the ring. But he never lost it. He always had the crowd behind him. And the part that I think is most interesting, and if you'll follow me down this path, he wore the paint, and it's a rip gimmick, right? He stole the gimmick from the Crow.
In the late 90s, when it changed.
Yeah, when he went to the mid, 97.
When he went from Surfer to the Crow.
And he also, I don't know if you know this, he owns the trademark for Sting. So Sting, the performer, has to pay him $1 every year to use it. Or I don't know if you're aware of that.
I know that, yeah.
So as he's working the gimmick, which he worked for 5 different decades, did it in WCW, of course, WWE and AEW.
Yeah.
And time in NWA.
Yeah.
Or not NWA, but TNA. He was only celebrated, right? And I was thinking as I'm going back and watching over the weekend, he looks the part. The makeup preserved his youth over the course of 5 decades because he's similar to Goldust. You never saw him get old. And it was such a smart idea to me. I'll use like Mr. Happy as an example. I don't believe that any fan of Duke City Championship Wrestling could venture a guess at how old Mr. Happy is. We know because we insure him.
And whatever you think age he is, you're still wrong.
Yeah, you're wrong.
You know, you're onto something here because, and I want to talk a little bit about the face paint when he went from Surfer Sting to the Crow Sting. That was a beautiful moment of just telling a bigger story that wrestling's getting a bit darker.
Yeah,
or at least like his role. What he can no longer be the happy-go-lucky surfer dude just crowing. He has to be the one, wallowing or just like, being quiet up in the rafters and just like plotting and stuff.
And the way they killed Surfer Sting too, we're going back to 96, 97 right now, where Surfer Sting existed, and then obviously Bash at the Beach and the birth of NWO. Hulk Hogan is the third man and all those things. And Sting was right there. Sting's like, Sting's in the mat, and he's just being whooped upon. And as this is happening, the storyline is progressing. So the storyline is the NWO and those that oppose WCW, they're just whooping Sting every single week. They're whooping Sting on TV because of the ratings war. They're whooping Sting at Starrcade. They're whooping Sting in every single way you can. And that Sting dies.
Yeah.
That character of Sting doesn't change his name, doesn't change the performance. He's not there anymore. And when he finally does return, he didn't return in the ring. He returned in the rafters.
For like a year.
For
right?
too long.
For he was just, but that was one of my favorite long-term stories. First, from when I was like becoming more aware of like how the business is working. I've been around it, but like now, like, oh, this is a work. This is a story. This is my first big storyline where they're like investing some time into it, taking the time.
Now that we have a different eye for what it is, as opposed to in 1997 when we were not even teenagers yet.
Yeah.
When we were watching, I didn't know that the first time he's in the Raptors, he's wearing a wig. I didn't know. Like they're like black t-shirt, black duster. Like, oh, okay, like that's and that turns into what, a singlet. That turns into form fitting. Now the bat shows up. And there's just this evolution. By the way, his hair gets time to grow out. That's like,
let it catch up to the wig.
That's the whole thing. And they do it so very well. And then when he does return, in the what's that thing called where you come down from the ceiling? The Shawn Michaels thing. What's that called?
Just a wire.
What I'm talking. It's a wire. Yeah. So when he comes down, and he's like, I'm here and I'm present and I'm fighting the bad guys, but I look like a bad guy. Like I'm not a hero anymore. I'm an anti-hero. And the success of guys that went on to be really successful, Stone Cold Steve Austin and Dean Ambrose at different points in his career, including right now is John Moxley, which I guess is his shoot name. But that type of character, in my opinion, Sally, would not exist. Harness. Thank you. Harness.
Thank you, Gabe.
Was that friend of the show, Gabe?
Yep.
So that would not have happened if it had not been proven by Sting in the 90s that you could introduce an anti-hero character, think Spawn, right?
Yeah.
To the world of pro wrestling. Because up until then, guys were professions as wrestlers.
Yes.
Guys, like everyone was a rich gimmick. They were an alliteration name. No offense to Hobo Hank or Turbo Tony or Valak Vile or any of those guys. But that's the idea of the transition he put into the sport.
So this was a beautiful thing. There's a change. There's a shift in the writing in all of professional wrestling.
Yeah.
Where they were going away from the black and white characters. You're only a face.
Yeah.
You're only a heel. There's a gray area in between. What if you're face, but you have to do some heel tactics to get over? Does that make you a face still, or like so nudging people? You're a heel, but you got to sometimes you got to do the right thing. That was a beautiful thing, and like that Sting having lead the narrative for that and leading the charge on. Like there is great characters in this.
Well, and him like sabotaging the NWO's cars. Him like doing like all of that, the tactics that they had done so long, except doing it against them. It was like a taste of your own medicine.
Exactly.
And then
people were about it. We ate it up, man.
Yeah. Oh my God.
We ate it up.
Loved it. And then it ended up in as we got older, we got older with the storylines. And is it 2002? WCW gets bought out, 2002, ? Right around there. So as that happens, all these guys with WCW contracts, a lot of them, Booker T, those kind of guys, they come over to WWE. There's an invasion angle. Sting's not there. But it's not like they're acting like Sting can't be there. Oh, also from the live chat, a friend of the broadcast, Bartholomew, talking about fake Sting. So as they're doing that, it's like, is Sting going to make the jump to WWE, at WWF at the time? Is Sting going to be that thing? He never does. He goes to TNA. And he adds a validity to that organization that they at the time needed. And by the way, they're still doing great. I think Tommy Dreamer's booking for him now.
Yeah.
But he doesn't make that jump to WWE until 2014, 15?
Mid-teens?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he comes over, catches a bad injury, which is a shame. You think his career's over at that time, and then a complete resurgence in the world of AEW, specifically his partnership with Darby Allin, who I think had some reputation issues up until partnering with Sting, and Sting has shown him how to be a professional wrestler.
On and off.
Yeah.
On and off, man. It's one of those things now, because of social media, people are watching how you conduct yourself, and also how you convey yourself when you're on your social media, and people always have a camera out watching you. But Steve he's stuck to their old school ways. Even like with the social media stuff, you don't see or hear too many stories or videos of Sting outside.
No,
because he's an old school guy where he does the job, shakes the hands, get paid, goes straight back to the hotel room and waits.
He very much lived that kayfabe life early on. He very much did that, and then he made some weird decisions. He had some family turmoil. Obviously, drugs and alcohol is a prominent part of that world of pro wrestling during the time he was coming up in it. And then that worked us up to this past weekend when Sting has to retire, and AEW did it in a way that I thought was super respectful. No spoilers for those who maybe haven't watched it yet, but you put him in a multi-man. He's able to similar when the Eagles come to town, you just want him to play the greatest hits.
Yeah.
He plays the greatest hits. The highlight of the thing is actually a Darby Allin thing. And then afterwards, you give all the fans a chance to celebrate him.
Yeah.
And the guys that are so prominent in the organization, the Young Bucks, they're obviously, a big feature in this thing as well. So just really smart, done really well. And I think my last thought on him before we go to break and come back to wrap it up in our final segment is he could have done whatever he wanted, and he chose pro wrestling. He could have been on American Gladiators.
Yeah.
He could have been on Baywatch. He could have been, at the time, those are the things, if you remember, at the top of cultural relevance. He chose pro wrestling, and you cannot write the story of pro wrestling without Sting.
I agree. A man who's been a part of at least 4 to 5 generations of fans.
Yeah.
That is insane, and that is a beautiful thing. There'll be none other like him, and the way he went out, the way he's retired officially, I'd say is one of the better ways that we could see someone in this position to do so.
The ultimate fantasy booking never happened with he versus The Undertaker.
Oh, man.
It should have. It should have.
Still feel that.
Yeah. That one was a loss to fans everywhere. And maybe it would have if he'd have maintained more health. And if you remember at that time, that's when The Undertaker wasn't at the top physically as well. So it would have been very tough if it would have been done. But the way you do cinematic matches now, the creativity involved with it could have been very special. When we get back, Saleh, we're going to dive back into the world of, really what it takes to be a pro wrestler. Specifically, I want to spotlight you, my friend, as I've been not just impressed, but beyond impressed with your effort around our squared circle in Duke City Championship Wrestling. This is Going Over on 95.9 FM and AM 610, the Sports Animal. Welcome back to the program. Welcome back to Going Over. I, of course, am Fred Slow alongside me, Saleh Taylor.
What's happening? What's good?
Saleh, we're at Sadies.
This is awesome. This is
sweet, right?
Beautiful, man. Sadies, we appreciate y'all. Sadies off of 4th.
Come and hang out.
Beautiful thing, baby.
Yeah, come and hang out.
And we're still here. If you want to join us for a pint.
I don't know if everyone knows our story, and it's bad radio to do your journal online or whatever, right? You and I met last year.
Yeah.
You were running Comic-Con, and you were looking for a host for a panel with Jimmy Hart.
Yes.
And you already had a pre-existing relationship with Chris Burnett.
Yes.
Chris Burnett, one of the original owners of Duke City Championship Wrestling, now just a performer outside of the ownership group. So he said, Saleh, meet my friend Fred, and we will see what we can do to really help you guys. And it was a fast friendship and one that is now one of the most important friendships in my life. And the skills that I didn't know you possessed at that time. Right.
Same here.
And then for you to constantly impress, constantly show, and as openings, you know what? This is a lie. I just lied a little bit. It's not that we were waiting for an opening. We were waiting for compensation. We were waiting to see if this thing was relevant. We were waiting to see if this thing was sustainable.
Yeah.
And then it was, okay, we have an opportunity here. People are excited about it. They're buying the merchandise. They're coming to the shows. We got some funds to make things happen. We need to reinvest those funds in the product. We reinvested those funds into Saleh Taylor, who has been a member of us, except when he skips for gigs, which he's done before. He's been a member of Duke City Championship Wrestling for how many shows now, my man?
I can't count over 3, so
Yeah.
at least over 3.
It's. I think you've been there for 7 of them. Is that right?
Maybe.
6 of them.
No,
And so you've done social media production, you've done music production, you've done the national anthem, you color commentator, you've taken bumps in the ring. You're completely licensed. You're all the aspects of being a part of the. I see you shake hands as people enter the building. I see you shake hands as people leave. I've watched you run pizza and water to the back to the boys. Like the setup of the ring, the tear down of the ring, the chairs, the entire aspect. If I handed you a camera, you would get photos not as good as, but adjacent to that of Rusty Rutherford. Why, my man? Is this industry like a perfect like culmination of all your skills?
This is a little humble brag for you, man. I don't think you've tapped into all my skills yet.
Love that.
But I am grateful for the opportunity.
Yeah.
For me, it's just always been. Actually, it's cultural.
Yeah.
I live to serve, and I found that my purpose in life is to serve. And overall, though, I am still a storyteller, and through that, I play my part. I serve the story. I serve the show. I serve the song when I'm a musician, but when I'm back in acting or doing stunts, I serve the bump. Whatever needs to be done. I know and learn my place. I learn and then know my place in the grand scheme of things, and I hope to hit my mark every time. I just want others to be comfortable. I just want others to enjoy themselves, and I just want to be in a position to help get that there for the others. That's me in a nutshell. I live to serve, and wrestling has always been a part of my life, my family, as y'all may know. But big time is just like I feel at home.
Yeah.
When I'm at DCCW, that's a good way to put it. Like I just get little flashbacks here and there with my cousins or my uncles, and just hearing the bumps, just hearing the crowd, and like it's kind of in a way me serving my family again.
Well, and you've been in the world of music and the world of television and movie for your entire adult life, right?
Yeah.
And now with not just a role in pro wrestling, but a prominent role. Has it changed that communication that you have had with your family? Has it changed how you're interacting when you do tell a story with them? Is there a new relation? Is it a rejuvenated relation? Like, how does that work between you and yours?
I understand and now am able to empathize more when my uncles are talking to me.
Yeah.
I had a great talk with my Uncle Sam a couple weeks ago.
Jacob's father.
Jacob's dad.
Yeah.
Rikishi's brother. And I had a great talk with him. And like, it was one of those things when I was younger. I'm like, oh man, the road's taking him, or he's taking too many hits on the chair.
Yeah.
With the chair and all that stuff. But then now I'm like beginning to learn his language of the things. And now I'm beginning to understand like why he was like like he did not want this life for us. They did not want this, but they're like, you want to make your choice? All right. I remember even hearing like my Uncle Joe, the Polynesian Prince, my dad's brother, and then his other brother, Fred, the Tasmanian Devil, the West Coast Taz. This is a fun story for you on that one, man.
I'm ready for it when you got it.
But like, by the way, Taz from the East Coast did not like my Uncle Taz.
You don't
on
say.
The West Coast, and they were trying to schedule a shoot until Taz learned that my Uncle Fred was actually like 6'5", Samoan, and also with wrestling and football and like even shoot wrestling background. Like,
also, you got to be a bad dude to have the nickname Taz,
bro.
Yes,
and he was like the Tasmanian Devil. So like the two of them were called the Samoan Nightmares, and they were also part of the original Samoan SWAT team. But like I remember just going back to hearing the stories that they would talk about and the sacrifices that they made. I am grateful, and I am right now. I am serving DCCW with all that I can.
Yeah.
And I don't need the road right now at this moment because I'm here to serve DCCW and everything within, and anything with DCCW on. I want to.
Well, and it's been such a large on taking from Duke City Championship Wrestling, right? The idea that we're going to go monthly.
Yes.
Like out of the gate. This wasn't we were going to take a warm-up period. This wasn't we were going to test the waters. This is we are doing monthly pro wrestling. We are creating television every single month.
Yeah.
And it's now you're in the ring training, right? Like you're getting back into the shape that you once been in. Also, I don't mean physical shape. I mean obviously you don't want to get blown up.
Yeah.
But
no.
Yeah.
I am a shape still.
but relearning and being ready to perform, and then what do you do? You're on the radio show every single week. You do the real show often every single week. There's a bunch behind the scenes where we're here's a real interesting one. We're a fingernail away from our YouTube partnership.
Yeah.
And at that point, we have to change all of our licensing. We have to change all of our music. And that's your big role of that as well. We shot a documentary video. We use your music on the documentary videos.
Yeah.
Like there's just this world of entertainment and creativity that you bring to it. Do you have a mental switch when you jump between those roles? When you have to jump off a commentary and run and be the heel support for the villainous whoever that's up against Hobo Hank?
So
is there a switch?
One of the most beautiful things that you taught me.
Yeah.
And I throw it back at you now is one of the reasons why, for those who don't know, I'm also a stage manager or assistant director while I'm on film sometimes. We have to keep time. And as soon as we finish our production meeting on the day for a show, I start the official clock an hour away, and I'm yelling in the building.
Correct.
Hour till doors open, half hour. So like that's also me winding myself up, getting ready to punch in and getting ready to get to gimmick. And the way you said it, and it made sense to me when you said, all right, let's punch in. After we do the national anthem, and then I walk to the booth for the first time, as soon as I cross the curtain, right before I hit that, I'm like, let's punch in.
Yeah.
Let's go. And I throw it at you. And I love it because that's my switch. And I have to be on. I have to be ready. And this last show, I hope it tells that I'm doing more character work.
Yeah.
But I'm in character more and more, and I'm digging into this.
Well, and it wildly translates too, because that idea of punching in and being those roles, the part to me that is maybe lost to others is how quickly that thing happens. There's a pro wrestling match. You have to go and be a part of that match from commentary. We know the setup for that. Yeah. And then you have to transition from that character to another character. And then there's the television story behind it, right? Not necessarily does everyone see it in the building. It's just you running in like an idiot or whatever. but we are producing that. And then what I thought was nice, you were talking about the production meeting. Your contribution actually starts before. Yours starts with, I've talked about the story a little bit. Pro wrestling, we have like this wives and girlfriends group, like this WAG group. Like I think you're part of the WAG group. Like you show up with snacks. Maybe. Like you show. Fred, you need a water. Fred, you need a drink. Fred, you need
a serve.
I'm like, I know today is not only going to go well, it's going to go better than it would because Saleh Taylor is there, and it's a big deal to me. And I know on air I hate your guts. I know the whole thing, but you are one example of the guys that are so many examples. Fonzie LaFleur is a really good example.
Oh man,
Fonzie LaFleur is surgical at building a pro wrestling ring.
It is beautiful. He's so methodical. I don't trust the ring now unless Fonzie's touched it.
Correct. Hobo Hank built our ring steps. Kevin Hoover in the back who hasn't performed in front yet, but all of our video production and our audio production and our sound production, that's all run through him. And I'll use like Thunder, right? Thunder is our champ. Thunder is our champ for a reason. Thunder is the first guy that comes up to you and I and says, hey, here's the story I'm trying to tell during the match. Hey, I'm going to put a fixation on this. You guys communicate this. There are these guys that just have like an art for this entire thing.
Beautiful.
And it is so wildly impressive to me because I think there's a fan base out there. Moshpit Mike, who works for us, right?
Yes.
Moshpit Mike can train. Moshpit Mike can put guys into a position to be successful as workers. Do I know if Moshpit Mike can make guys great on the microphone? I don't know that. But I know he can teach them arm bars and he can teach them hip tosses, and you can teach them everything they need to go out there and look the part.
Moshpit Mike to me now is one of those names. If I hear someone say, oh yeah, I rolled around with Monster Mike, and I was like, okay, you can work.
Yes, you're good.
Okay.
You are good at this thing.
He's not going to let you use his name unless you've earned it.
Oh, I like that. I like that mentality.
You know.
Yeah, and and that's part of the game, right? So it's every single person that is the role you see them as in Duke City Championship Wrestling. I promise you, they don't just have one more role; they have two, or they have three,
yes,
or they have four, and it is wildly incredible. Aaron Burnett, who no one ever sees because you see him when you walk in, he scans your ticket.
Yeah.
If there is a piece of paperwork, if there is a ticket, if there is a finance thing,
a call to the commission, a call to the state, a call to the Capitol.
He's got it.
Yeah.
Fernando Gonzalez, who does our backstage interviews, also in the ownership group of Duke City Championship Wrestling. He is a guy that is just a liaison of enjoyment. We're fortunate to have all these dudes out there. I'm not trying to spoil anything yet because it's going to be fun when it happens. Homie?
Homie, dude. Homie got a page.
It's wild. It's wild how incredible this thing is. Lastly, and this is going to sound like a weird call to action that I'm not trying to create. If you have interest in, if there's anything you, friend of Duke City Championship Wrestling, or fan of, where you say, hey, I believe I have a skill, an idea, a product, a capability that will bring growth and enhancement to Duke City Championship Wrestling, and you're looking to be a part of that, reach out. Reach out. I'm always available. Fred at talkabq.com. The social media outlets will get me there. I don't really monitor those, but Gabe Gambino does. Lead singer of Man High. It's
multiple hats. Very passionate.
Correct.
A big presence for DCCW.
Wildly important. But do make that effort, because that's how we found it. That's how we found Fernando. That's how we found Kevin Hoover, who, like I said, runs. The reason the lights and the sound and the TV look so good is because these guys put work in. And we are all just a benefit because of they. But a world of talent, a world of going over.
I gotta say one more thing before you finish, man. All of this, everything that puts in what they can, and they share the passion, they share the time, share their energy. That's because we're under the leadership of such a strong ownership group between Fernando, Hobo Hank, Joe. I'm sorry.
Joe is Hobo Hank.
Yeah, Aaron.
Yeah,
and you. We have a strong ownership group that has a clear vision on things that they want to do and things they want to make happen. But more importantly, you're able to adjust on the fly, and you're able to be flexible in case something better comes up. Good. So we are grateful for y'all.
Very kind.
We appreciate you.
Yeah, the good radio is leaving them wanting more, and that what more is the possibility of the NWA and Duke City Championship Wrestling, the National Wrestling Alliance, and Duke City Championship Wrestling moving forward in an affiliation program. We'll see as that develops. We're so very excited for that. Social media wise, Duke City Warriors has been doing backstage interviews and handing out gear and awards.
Yeah, we appreciate you.
Hey, I promise you, the boys see that. They talk about it. They know when they're winning. They know
you're in our conversations. You're part of our locker room talk.
Speaking of awards, Thunder is with us, and he currently sits atop the mountain with the World Championship. Stay very tuned to March, though, as I promise you, there's a new goal for wrestlers that's going to be introduced. And let's just say, Saleh, it's going to be gold in Duke City Championship Wrestling. It's going to be gold, my man. Final words, brother?
I love and appreciate every single person that has been part of it, continues to support us from the bottom of my heart, man.
For Saleh Taylor, for myself, for going over. Good job, everyone. GG.